Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and hey, welcome to Slime. Now, episode 25, as it turns out, is a bit of a recap episode. Actually, it's totally a recap episode. That's unfortunate. That said, it didn't feel right to just leave Slime without giving a final thoughts, even though it might just be kind of on the spot, not really refined, just kind of talking about the series. So we're gonna do that for this episode, kind of. So it won't really be a watch through. One thing I do want to say, clean up notes. Thank you everyone for commenting last week, and thank you everyone who pointed out my silliness with the whole Diablo thing. And also thanks to the people that also talked about the demons and the rationales. Someone had really good points, and I don't mind being wrong. And sometimes I get too excited, sometimes I get too caught in my head. So I'm very happy that we have checks and balances, like you guys pointing out how silly I am or how stupid I'm being. So I appreciate all of you guys. And thank you all for making those comments, worth reading. They were all very nice. And the one comment in terms of the ones that called me out about the Diablo thing, I found it funny that one person said I was more of a spoiler. I really tried to keep that under control, but again, thank you all for taking the time to comment. I really appreciate it. And hey, it's just another fun time of watching anime. Now, I think there's a little bit of an original scene here, so let's just see that very quickly. Because this is the conversation between the dragon and Ifrit. Now, see, I like this because it tells us a little bit more about what's going on here. Nice. Oh no, they're playing shogi. This is kind of humanizing Ifrit for me a little bit more. They should bring in the orc disaster, but I think he's fully done. I hope he wins. Let's just check to see if there's anything else. Okay, they're just kind of talking about shogi. So that's pretty much the way that the episode is going to go. So we won't really go through it as well, but we'll just talk. So overall, Slime as a season, how do I feel about it? I'm overall happy with it. Honestly, I'm overall happy, and I've seen some people in the comments point out that they're also very overall happy with things too. I think it was a nice, very chill time just going through it. I do recall saying, and I think you guys recall too, that I enjoyed the first half of the season more than I enjoyed the second half, just because the first half felt like there were more things going on and there was more direction, and then the second half just felt like it was slicing a lot of things off. Like, a lot of things happened very quickly, especially the moment the orcs got involved. That was a big thing, because that was pretty much, well, the struggle of building a village evaporated the moment that the orcs got involved. And that did kind of mark what the rest of that half of the season was going to be. It was just going to be things happening quickly. And for me, it felt like the struggle to get to your goals wasn't as prominent. And I kind of missed that. I kind of liked that little bit of a struggle that we had in the first half of the season. And that was kind of echoed in some parts in that second half of the season. Like, for instance, when we had Rimuru versus the giant sky whale, like the very simple solution was just to have Milim go ahead and destroy it. It was things like that that kind of took it down for me. And also there was lack of showing off new units. There were lack of Rimuru developing his village, especially when we went into this part here with the kids. Just kind of slowed it down. In terms of isekais though, I think this was really good. Like, I remember Death March, and Death March, unfortunately, it's not like Slime in the sense that I think the early Death March isn't as good as later Death March, whereas early Slime felt really good. It felt really good to see up to the Onis and all that. So I do appreciate that. It is interesting how the light novels do tend to have that really kind of that lull in them sometimes. But for Slime, I'm happy that you got to see a lot of what Slime's good for in those first 12 episodes, as opposed to just kind of fizzling out in after the first 4, which kind of happened with Death March. One thing to keep in mind about that second half of the season though, because someone pointed out in the comments for last week, the story hasn't really begun for Rimuru's group, and that's, yeah, in a sense that is pretty much true. And when you take that into consideration and you look at the second half of the season, you notice how much more of a setup it is, because that second half, like I said earlier, things kind of slowed down, and Rimuru wasn't really struggling to establish things, like especially when it came to establishing relations with other parties like the adventurer guilds and the towns. Those all kind of just happened quickly, and when you take into account that that was potentially a setup for the future, it makes sense why things happen so easily. It makes sense why diplomatic negotiations just work. It's because the big thing is what happens, or I guess once all these ties start getting called upon. In that note, it's also important to note that the second half of the season, or pretty much the last 4 episodes, maybe 4 or 5 episodes of the season, revolved around closing off a plot line for Shizu. Now, one thing that I will say is that I still feel Shizu's importance was overstated in the anime, but that might be just from my perspective. I might be missing something. I think... Okay, no, this is kind of dicey. This is kind of dicey because the mask is involved. Like, yes, Shizu is very important, but I feel like the degree to which she was marketed was a bit too much. But I understand. I get it. Logically, and by the things that we've shown, she is super important. But that just kind of talks to how weird I found the marketing for Slime. This isn't really the anime's fault, but just as a note in this final impressions, I do think a lot of those images and a lot of like the stuff in the opening was just unnecessary teasing and sometimes just flat out misleading. I don't have the images to show you of the promos and all that. But if we just go to the opening, and I'll just show you guys the one that I always talked about. This shot of Ramirez is always hilarious because it this is a stereotypical villain shot, and it's like, no, I mean, Rimuru broke one of the things, and Rimuru gave her the other demon. So it was really funny. Slime's marketing tricks here, or hype tricks here, were really interesting, and I do kind of wonder about the mentality behind the scenes at the studio. Did someone think like, yeah, you know, people aren't waiting for the first season, they're waiting for the stuff that happens in the second season? I wonder if people were talking like that behind the scenes. That said, Slime, overall, as a package, I think it was a solid anime. And at the very least, for casual fans, for fans that just kind of want to get into isekai and they don't want to deal with like those creepier aspects of isekai or those more in-depth aspects of isekais, if they just want like a simple show, a simple romp through a fantasy world, I think Slime really works. And one of the big things too to keep in mind with Slime is that it was ultimately very, well, people always called it wholesome, and it largely was. It was very much centered on Rimuru just wanting to have a peaceful life in this new world, and I do appreciate it for that. Anyway, this Ramble Fest for Slime is over. We had the recap episode. So, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Maybe I'll make a better full review in the future. Depends, like... I do think as a full product, I do think Slime is kind of flawed in just how it loses that momentum when it goes into the second season. But it's kind of hard to quantify losing that momentum. Like, you could always bring up how much things were skipped in terms, and how much things were rushed to make a case for why the second half became kind of shoddy. But that always ends up in that territory of the anime originals versus, or sorry, the anime fans versus the light novel purists. And it's kind of dangerous, or not dangerous, but it's, you gotta like be careful walking that line when you're defending a light novel. Otherwise, people will see you as a purist. Anyway, overall, Slime, I think it was a solid anime, and I very much enjoyed watching it with you all. I very much enjoyed reading your comments. I very much enjoyed getting put in my place. And everything that you guys point out as terms of constructive criticism, I will take into the future and try to become better at doing this whole thing in terms of reactions. Also, I want to just say thank you to like everyone who would comment after I asked you guys a particular question, whether it be asking about when the anime was ending or what you thought about even like last week's Diablo thing. I really appreciate it. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. And till next time, I guess that's pretty much it for Slime till Season 2. I hope you have an absolutely great day. And in case you're waiting for other videos, well, I will try to get them done. Anyway, till next time.